I'm Katie Cowan, and this is the Creative Boom podcast. For episode 74, my guest is Sarah Hyndman, a graphic designer and researcher and the person behind type tasting, a practice that's on a mission to change the way we think and talk about typography by making it fun and exciting for us all. Sarah specialises in making typography entertaining and relevant through humour, a dash of theatre, and lashings of audience participation. And she's also the author of various books on type, including the best-selling Why Fonts Matter and the title How to Draw Type and Influence People. Through her practice, she gets us to think about type in ways we never thought possible. That's whether she's doing a TEDx talk, TV interview, radio show, or an installation at the V&A in London. She takes typography way beyond the world of graphic design. Even chef Heston Blu-men-thal calls on Sarah as his font science expert. How cool is that? I wanted to pick Sarah's brains on this and all things type, on how typography has changed since she first discovered it as a child looking at chocolate and sweet wrappers in her local corner shop. We hear of her thoughts on trends and the design industry overall, about that dreaded type snobbery and why we are all in fact experts whether we think we are or not. We also delve into the subconscious and how we feel about various typefaces, even whether they have the power to change the world, shape our behaviour and influence pop culture. Stay with us. Imagine the possibilities if you could turn your iPad into a drawing tablet by mirroring your favourite Mac or PC desktop apps. Astropad Studio is what you've been looking for. It's a smart app for professional artists designed to give the flexibility of an Apple Pencil combined with the full desktop power of software like Photoshop and Illustrator. Even with the most demanding creative work, Astropad Studio guarantees low latency performance over Wi-Fi or USB cable, so you can stay productive and creative on the go. There are also so many features that allow you to customize your workflow, from programmable gestures and unlimited shortcuts to custom pressure curves and pressure smoothing. You'll certainly feel unstoppable. What's more, Astropad Studio is trusted by leading design agencies and animation studios around the world, and millions of artists already rely on it whether they use a Mac or PC. If you're ready to take your creative workflow to the next level, you can start your 30-day free trial of Astropad Studio today, plus save 10% on your first year when you enter the promo code BOOM at checkout. That applies to whether you opt for a monthly or an annual subscription. Visit astropad.com to get started. Well, I've been very excited about chatting with you, Sarah. I mean, typography, obviously, it's got so many multiple dimensions. It's a fascinating subject. And you're absolutely, dare I say it, obsessed with it. So we couldn't have picked the better person to talk about all things type. Can typography, do you think, change the world?
I think it already is. I think it has many times over. It's changed our brains. It's changed how we share information. I think it changes everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite interesting how over the course of the pandemic, we've seen how typography has shifted. I mean, I'm not an expert, but from what I've seen, there seems to be a lot of nostalgia, a lot of comfort, a return to even maybe the 70s and the 90s and the 80s. Have you seen that yourself, that kind of comfort blanket, I suppose?
Yeah, completely. But first of all, I want to pick you up on not being an expert. All of us are experts because our subconscious looks at type, and our subconscious it understands all the different references. We just don't think about it consciously. So the reason that type communicates all of these different messages, whether it's something looking sweet, whether it's something looking a bit scary, is because actually you are already an expert. So what I always try to do is have conversations where I put them in context of things that stop typography feeling really intimidating.
You're right. I mean, it is a subconscious thing, isn't it? But where does that come from? It's a strange thing that I can't quite understand, really.
So, and we'll come back to your trends question afterwards. But this is something I've just been reading about. I'm writing a new book at the moment, so I've been reading about all of this as a way just to try and explain it and to understand it myself. So from what I understand, it's all to do with reading being something that our brains weren't designed to do. And so if you talk to neuroscientists like David Eagleman, or I'm just reading an amazing book called Proust and the Squid, they talk about how your brain has actually had to literally rewire itself to learn to read. It takes all of these different cognitive processes, and it takes you a few years to do this. And once you've rewired your brain, you turn it into this kind of sub-program, and you do this kind of underneath the radar subconsciously, so you don't pay attention to doing it. If you see some words, you can't not read them. If it's in a language that you speak, you just read so instinctively that it takes you from looking at something to ideas or songs or smells or memories inside your head. And you forget that you've actually gone through this process of looking at these letters, decoding them and thinking about the end message. And exactly the same thing, I think, is happening with the way that you evaluate typefaces, because it's all part of that invisible reading process. So you don't think about it. It's like the first impression that you form when you meet somebody. You don't stand there and think, oh, yes, I am looking at your clothes and your whatever. You don't really do a conscious evaluation, but it changes a lot of how you're going to interpret what they say. And it's this really invisible process that I think is really fascinating, to just find ways to make it visible again, so that that everybody can see, oh, yes, actually, this does make sense.
It's really fascinating. I find it crazily fascinating. And I suppose with that in mind, typography can be used for, it can be used for good. It can also be used for less worthy causes, to persuade and influence. You can, I suppose you could trick people into buying something maybe, or, it could go into the kind of dark arts, as they say.
I think type is just one of the many tools that a designer has or an advertiser has, and we we know that I don't know if I'd necessarily call them the dark arts. Well, we know that there's a whole spectrum. Communication is a spectrum, and you kind of know. You walk around the supermarket and you can see how much research is being done but not published. Yeah. You can kind of see from what's on the shelves what is working to push different kinds of foods, or to maybe push things that aren't necessarily as healthy. How type can be used to kind of create trust or make something look really familiar. It can't completely trick you. There's an experiment that I did. I'll tell you about it, and you can edit it down if you want to.
No, I'm fascinated. Go for it.
So it was. I'm really interested in finding out how we respond to typography as type consumers. So people on the receiving end of it, the consuming end of it, which means I can't just say, "What do you think about this typeface?" Because then you think about it consciously, and that doesn't tap into that subconscious thing. So I set up lots of games and experiments. I will always be really clear that that's what I'm doing. I also never do them for companies. I always do them just for my own research, and then I publish it in books, which is really important to say. I'm not working on behalf of any dark arts companies. So I was trying to work out, I'd read a study about wine tasting more expensive if you enjoying a glass of wine more if you think it's from an expensive bottle. And it got me thinking about, I bet I could do this with typography. Because we kind of know you can make a label look expensive, you can make it look cheap. So I, first of all, had to work out what the scale of cheap to expensive typography is, which is became a whole separate, really fun experiment to do. Then I decided, let's see if I can make wine. I ended up doing it with chocolate because it's much easier to do experiments with chocolate and cheaper. So I did this experiment where I handed people pieces of chocolate, asked them to taste it, and asked them how expensive and how delicious, or how much they enjoyed it, how much they were likely to eat it again. But what they didn't know was that every half an hour I was switching between the expensive and the cheap typeface. And at the end of the day, I tallied it all up, and it was really amazing that the people who'd eaten the pieces of chocolate to the expensive typeface rated it as tasting better, and they thought it tasted more expensive. And I thought, wow, that's really proven this. And I'd used really nice green and black chocolate. Hadn't really thought about how popular an experiment is if you give people free chocolate. So I'd had loads of participants. All the chocolate had gone. So day 2, went back to this huge event and bought some much cheaper chocolate because I'd kind of blown. I'm self-funded as well, you know.
Of course.
And did the same thing again, got home, tallied it up, and was really kind of shocked that not only had it not worked, but actually the responses were the opposite. The people who'd eaten the really cheap chocolate to the expensive typeface actually rated it as tasting even cheaper and liking it even less. And I was really perplexed. How did that happen? And so there's a scientist, Professor Charles Spence, who works at Oxford University, who has helped me a lot. He's kind of taught me how to do a lot of this research. And I asked him, because he was at this event, and he said it was all about the congruence. There are parameters within which you can nudge people's experiences. But if you prime them to expect something to be really super expensive and delicious, but then their experience is of something that's quite cheap, you actually make them notice the difference. And so the disappointment amplifies the cheapness.
Oh, wow. That is really interesting.
So this idea that typography can really make you do bad things or make you do anything. It's just one of the tools, and it can only nudge you within a certain sort of scope, really.
So we're smarter than we give ourselves credit for.
We absolutely
can't trick you. We can't be tricked. We kind of look at something and we know. We taste something and we know. So that's interesting. That's reassuring. But then I suppose it can be flipped on its head and used for good in terms of, I suppose, if we're going to stick with the theme of food, it can highlight unhealthy ingredients and maybe help have the power to tackle the obesity crisis that we have in the UK at the moment.
So there's lots of research ongoing in this area, and it's something I'm really fascinated by. And it began, so one of the things began when a friend of mine bought a diet meal a few years ago, and it had that really skinny diet food. You know exactly what diet food typefaces look like. And then she picked a second pack up and put it in her basket and said, look, I kind of know I'm still going to be hungry at the end of this. And I sort of thought, well, that kind of defeats the object. It told her it was a diet product, but it also told her that she was going to still be hungry. So a thing that I think is really interesting to look at is how, then if you look at the other end of the scale, all of the kind of products that have these really gooey, oozy, naughty, kind of really kind of
Cadbury's.
Type and those things that you really want, like cheesy type and all of that kind of stuff. Or type that, so there's another experiment I've done which has been published as a study where when you eat a jelly bean, we've shown that you are more aware of its sweetness. So it can taste a little bit sweeter if you look at a particular curvy kind of typeface, and if you look at a much more jagged typeface, you're more aware of the sourness or the bitterness in something. So if you can start finding a way to tell somebody that this is healthy food, but also convince their subconscious brain, prime them that they're actually going to find it indulgent or sweet, so you can then maybe adjust the ingredients, would be amazing. It has to be done in conjunction with everything else, in conjunction with language, packaging. That there are so many layers to it, but
definitely you can maybe take something that maybe a fast food brand has used traditionally and add that to a healthy food brand and see what happens. I think that would be a very interesting experiment indeed. I actually did your type tasting online lab before our chat and did the coffee test, and I found that fascinating. I was like, oh, what typography looks more expensive? What looks cheap? What would represent a frappuccino? And given that I don't drink coffee, it was a bit more challenging, but I still found it, quite interesting. Choosing kind of typeface for espresso, for me, I don't know why. I just had this feeling of Italy and maybe something a little bit more kind of, I don't know, geometric. I don't know. It was kind of, you instruct us on these tests to not think about it and just hit the button as fast as possible, because it's all about the unconscious. Because the minute you start to think about it, you're overthinking it, and then the whole experiment probably doesn't work. Because you're like thinking, I might get this wrong.
Exactly. And all of these, I rely on having really big numbers of people take part. So it doesn't matter if one person's answer is that, all of the outliers don't matter at all. It's much more interesting when I can do these in person. So it's been a bit sad during COVID that I can't go and take my pop-up lab. Because it's really interesting if you answer all the answers, but then we can have a chat about it. So I can say, why did you pick that? And quite a lot of the time, the people who pick the answers I don't expect, those are the most revealing, because I'll ask why. And then you discover that there's a whole set of personal experiences and associations. And so much of this is about our personal associations. So what I think of as an expensive typeface might not be what you think of, or somebody in another country, or somebody who reads type that's not based on a Latin alphabet.
This is where it gets really complicated, because it's where all these personal things start slipping in, and you know, our own experience of the world. You know, I suppose everything's subjective. You know, we have different tastes. So I suppose in that sense, who decides what a font represents? How does a designer take a font and say, okay, that's friendly, or that's expensive, or that's timeless, if we've all got very different feelings? But surely there's got to be a kind of, you know, middle ground.
I think there are two layers to it. There's one very, very basic level, which is how we respond incredibly instinctively. So we have responses to basic shapes that go back to kind of our hunter-gatherer selves. For our survival, we would look for round things, because round things they might be red, sweet, nutritious berries if you're looking for food, which is also why we like red things. But also if it's somebody's face, like a baby's face looks kind of really, or somebody that's smiling with big eyes, they're really friendly and welcoming. Whereas the minute you're scrunched, your face looks much, much more angular. So an attacking animal will have a kind of much more angular face, or things that are dangerous to touch will be quite spiky. So we have this incredibly visceral, immediate response to those two shapes. But then we have all the layers of associations from everything we've experienced throughout our lives. So as children, lots of children's typefaces are really round and curvy and friendly. So that kind of reinforces all of that. But then or there's another game I play where I take a pile of records and I show you a single letter in a black letter typeface on a vinyl record, and I ask you what kind of music it is. So if I showed you that,
how interesting.
What kind of music would you think that is?
Oh, I'm going to have to do that one. That would be really interesting.
Just now, what's the first kind of music that would pop into your head if I showed you a black letter?
Hip hop.
Okay, cool. So I do this, and I've put heavy metal on it. And what I discovered was this actually tells you a lot about both of our ages, both of our backgrounds, the kind of music that we listen to, our friends.
Yes.
And the more people I show it to, the more different pairings I find, which really surprised me to start with, because I just assumed everybody would say heavy metal. And of course they don't. So it depends what records you have in your collection.
Were you a rocker, Sarah, in your teen years?
Yeah, I was. A rocker and a goth.
Cool.
So.
Cool. What was your coming of age album then? Your favourite? And have you kept it?
It was an album by Bauhaus, and yes, I do still. It was a 12-inch. It was La Gotija Nick by Bauhaus.
Oh, amazing.
And then
I
lots
miss
of Bowie.
vinyl.
But it's still around. We've still got a big pile of vinyl.
Oh, fantastic. Have you got the kind of nice decks on the side? Have you got something in your living room where you just turn the kind of...
at home I have to say I'm lazy and I use the streaming. But
we all do that.
In the studio, I have mine. I'm a record player and I take it to events because it's just so much fun to play with. And especially because I've taken all these labels off. But I think also this links back into the nostalgia question you asked me right at the beginning.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
So this idea
it changes for everybody, doesn't it? Because like for us, it felt very nostalgic, some of the sort of patterns and trends that were coming out over the last 2 years. But how might that have looked to sort of the younger generations, for example, who grew up in the 90s?
So then a lot of the typefaces, I think the really big ones were Windsor, and Cooper Black was having a moment as well, and Souvenir. And all of those, you'd have to be really old if they were nostalgic from their first time around, because these are all Art Nouveau typefaces. So they were all designed around 1900, 1905. And then they became popular again in the 1970s, and then they became popular again. I kind of liken Windsor to kind of being the typographic banana bread of 2020. It was that real comforting, because it also looks really squishy and satisfying, and you kind of want to give it a cuddle. You could throw Windsor across your sofa and kind of lounge on it for a day. It mirrored the banana bread, but it also had that very classic A that looks really Art Nouveau. It's a very, very stylized letter. And I think we've learned through associate, every time it turns up, especially in a kind of historical association or historical context, we've learned that this is a nostalgic typeface. So for the new generation, they might not think, oh, that was a 70s typeface, but it's going to be, oh, that was the 2020 typeface, which was all about gardening and plant babies and air, and a lot of the associations that were important during lockdown or were important for this revival of these Art Nouveau typefaces were really similar to in the 60s and 70s when it was about flower power. Again, it was a reaction against the previous kind of austerity, visual austerity of minimalism. And the same back when Art Nouveau originally came around. It was all very natural motifs. It was a reaction against the Industrial Revolution and all the ugliness and big machines. So it's interesting that it's not just the type styles that repeat, but also the ideas or the kind of social attitudes that seem to also be in sync with them.
Absolutely. And fashion and politics, it's part of pop culture, wouldn't you say?
Yes, completely. Absolutely. Which is why I get frustrated when typography is talked about as this kind of very intellectual topic that's only for experts, when it actually, yes, it is pop culture. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I suppose in that regard, you know, it can change, it can shift and reflect what's happening in the world. But how on earth does it begin? You know, when does, you know, say, Copper Black? Is it Cooper Black?
Cooper Black, yeah.
Sorry, this is where I show I'm not a designer. Where does that sort of become then a trend and become, you know, is it a case of a huge studio like Pentagram using it for a huge brand identity project and everybody goes, oh, that's nice, I'll use that. And then it just sort of spirals until the point that the whole design industry gets completely sick of it and starts using something else? Or is it not that simple?
I would imagine it's a mixture of everything, because before the big design studios, we still had type trends.
Yes, of course.
They mirrored, so like the Art Nouveau one, that began with artists, and it was a youth movement. It was kind of rebellion against the mainstream. It was kind of counterculture. So it was, rather than these very formal, rigid printed typefaces, the artists used paintbrushes, and which was pretty much the furthest you could go away from the formalized type. And I guess as the Art Nouveau movement was picking up pace and these kind of very painterly typefaces were picking up pace, but then the big type foundries spotted this and then turned them into commercial type. And then that's the point at which they start turning up in adverts, they start becoming mainstream. Yeah. And then, yes, as they get to the point where they're oversaturated and they fall out of favor again. But I think it's like any fashion. It starts somewhere. And I think also it's probably because the mood of the moment is right. It just feels right. For we've had this about a decade of very minimalist sans serif typefaces that I was getting so bored with.
I bet you were.
And it's just been the last 4 or 5 years, it's just been absolutely magical. And now type it's like this pick and mix of so many different type styles, all kind of layered up in this beautiful way. And it's just so expressive and so different. But we will get to the point where we're bored of that, and we will go back at some point to this minimalism all over again, because that's just how the cycle keeps
just how
going.
It works.
Yeah.
Swings and roundabouts, as they say. And I suppose in that sense, would you say that the best creativity comes out of rebellion?
Oh, in my opinion, yes. I've never really thought about it, but I would say that the people who are kind of ahead of the curve are the ones that are rebelling or making a change or doing something that's really brave or doing something that looks very different. And then as they keep doing it, I guess a lot of them won't hit the mood of the moment, but some of it will. And then gradually more and more, then you get to the early adopters, and then more and more people start to feel it's right.
Well, this is why the artists and the designers are the most important, because they're the ones that start the kind of trend, aren't they? They probably don't even realise they're starting a trend. They're just doing something different, trying something interesting, experimenting. And then, a few years later, everybody's doing the same thing. And so the cycle continues.
And I think maybe that's the importance of especially designers having side hustles and side projects and independent projects, because those are the ones where you can really play, really have caused some mischief, and you don't have the parameters of a client brief. So, I completely agree. And I think it's a thing that we should all remember to do more of.
Yes.
Because, it's fun, but actually that is where the changes happen.
Absolutely. And the best stuff comes out of it. How do you get any work done, Sarah? You must just spend all day tempted to go on Instagram and scroll through people's portfolios.
My idea of work is kind of interesting anyway. So I set my own projects depending on what I think is of interest at the time. So at the moment, I'm simultaneously writing a book that's a collection of all of the multisensory research I've been doing for the last few years. And then there's another one as well, which has all the personality stuff. But then I'm also starting to turn my walking tours into online experiences. So,
amazing. Yes, because you do these typographic tours, don't you? I saw one for East London. I bet that's a kind of fascinating, walk down memory lane, if you forgive the pun.
Yes, that's the first one I'm turning into an online experience, just because there are so many layers to it. And what was fantastic was, so I spoke about it at Adobe Max, which might be the one that you saw. And then also did live Zoom versions of it, which I didn't walk around. I just showed you slides. So it was kind of live, but not live in a way, I guess. But what was fantastic about doing that was I could show history. I could take you back to photos of what it was like before. I could add sounds. I could get you to eat something at appropriate moments. And because people from all over the world could come to it. So you didn't just have to be in East London. And I found it really exciting, especially in that first year of lockdown, how moving everything onto Zoom really changed what I did and gave me access to this whole new audience, and really made me think about how to create things that are online but aren't just flat and visual. So where you're thinking about the whole sensory experience and making it feel as if you are walking down a street somewhere. So this is what I'm working on. It's a bit of a bonkers
Yeah, you'll
project.
have to get a green screen. You'll have to get a green screen and, all these professional lighting. And, have you looked into that yet? That'll be you. You'll be walking virtually around East London next time I see you.
Or maybe my hologram. You'll bump into my hologram somewhere in Dalston.
That's going to happen. In our lifetime, that's going to happen, definitely.
Yeah.
What's quite interesting about that is you're now reaching an audience that might not necessarily have any kind of relation or background or experience of typography in London. So that's interesting, because then you can sort of ask them, what does that typography, what do you think when you see this? Because you're just going to then get all this amazing research out of reaching people from all over the planet. I mean... Yes, I wouldn't stop working.
which is incredibly interesting, and working out how I can build these kind of questions into it is quite fascinating. One of the things that has surprised me, so I always aim at talking to the type consumers. So again, not just the designers, because that's where you get the most interesting responses. And so I've taken a lot of what I've done to different countries. One that was most interesting was I taught in India for a week or so, and we were looking at a lot of my associations that I'd been gathering, and then I was getting all the students to replicate a lot of the research. And it was really fascinating that, along with the Latin alphabet, a lot of the associations have also been taken to different countries. So,
oh wow, that's interesting.
So, and I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not sure that is right. I would like everybody to form their own opinions and their own experiences, and not just import somebody else's, because that's the way that typography is taught, or because those are the associations you think you should have with these different typefaces. So it's fascinating that there are more similarities than one might expect, but then the differences, the kind of outlier answers, are that's where the kind of secret sauce is, because that's where you start to find out where differences and experiences are happening, and finding ways to unlock those answers are the best ones.
When it comes to the very tools we use to be creative, sometimes they don't quite stretch enough to meet our needs. If you're a professional artist with an iPad, you'll know only too well some of the limitations you face when trying to make art. Astropad Studio is something that will definitely spark your interest. It's the ultimate iPad app that's designed to give the flexibility of an Apple Pencil combined with the full desktop power of software like Illustrator or Photoshop. Sound good? There's a 30-day free trial of Astropad Studio waiting for you today. Just go to astropad.com to get started. Don't forget, you can save 10% on your first year when you enter the promo code BOOM at checkout. That applies to whether you opt for a monthly or an annual subscription. I love that there's a bit of type snobbery in the industry. Like, people really get quite opinionated and in some cases quite angry about, things like Comic Sans and, that old chestnut. And, the design industry seems, not all of it, but it does seem to be very kind of engaged in what's put out there. And I find that fascinating. Is it something you enjoy engaging in? Or would you call yourself a type snob, Sarah? Or are you kind of quite open-minded and compassionate towards the kind of, the harshly criticised fonts like Comic Sans, that poor old thing?
I would say I'm the opposite of a type snob, hopefully, because my whole idea is to talk beyond the design industry. There's no point being too snobby about it, because that is one of the things that becomes really off-putting to everybody. I try and sneak Comic Sans into everything, just
Brilliant.
As out of principle, even though it's quite small. So it is one of those, can you see where I fitted it in? The first book I published was originally called The Type Taster when it was self-published. And then when Penguin picked it up, we live in the most amazing world where you can self-publish a book and it can be picked up by a major publisher, which just still kind of blows me away. And the genius thing they did was, because I'd said I've written this for a mainstream audience, they called it Why Fonts Matter, which is not the right title. Yeah, it should be called Why Typefaces Matter.
Yes, I know. This is the thing that I was really worried about, getting it wrong, with whether it's fonts or typefaces or typography or type families. I mean, it's confusing, Sarah, for people who aren't designers. I mean, if you'd like to sort of kind of enlighten our audience for anyone who is confused.
I think it depends on who you're talking to. So if I'm talking to a mainstream audience, I'm going to talk about fonts, because that's the language you use, because you have a font menu. I want you to fall in love with typography. So if I start telling you you're using the wrong language, that's really not the way to do it. So if I join you in the language that makes sense, and then we have some fun with okay, you might not know what you think intellectually about these fonts, but would you go on a date with this one, or would you ditch it, or would you date that one instead? Or if I said Comic Sans, Times New Roman, and Helvetica, which one would you date? Snog, marry, avoid. Which one would you?
I'd snog Comic Sans. I'd probably marry Times New Roman. And what was the other one?
Ditch. You'd ditch Helvetica.
I'd ditch Helvetica because it's probably too up itself.
We would be fighting over exactly the same typefaces.
Oh dear. Is that what everybody says?
No. Usually people won't go anywhere. They'll ditch Comic Sans. But I think Comic Sans would be a good laugh for a night out.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that says a lot about your personality, actually. I'd want to sort of say to Comic Sans, I'd probably just want to interview them. So, Comic Sans, how do you feel about being the most laughed at typeface? I mean, that's what we should call them, typefaces, not fonts.
Typefaces are the typeface is the design or the idea. So Comic Sans or Helvetica is a typeface, and then the format you use it in. So whether it's the file on your computer or whether it's a little metal printed block, those are the fonts. So the physical format. But because
I'm glad we've cleared this up.
But because the world now uses the word fonts, I'm quite happy to not pick anybody up on it. It's
communication.
It is. Once you become a designer and you're working within the industry, you kind of should be using the correct terminology there. But wider than
Absolutely.
that, there are bigger things to worry about.
Absolutely. There's far more important things going on in the world. But I mean, I can't believe I just said that to a type designer, type professional. But
no, I agree.
Forgive me.
There really are. There really absolutely are way more important things happening.
Yeah. So when did this fascination with typography begin for you, Sarah? I mean, was it when you were a kid and you started noticing things on crisp packets and cartoons, that kind of thing?
I didn't realise it, but yeah, I used to love all the sweet packaging, the candy packaging in the local sweet shop when I was a child. If you think about just all of the sort of whiz popping, all of typography for children is really exciting. It's from superheroes to all of these kind of taste adventures, and it's only once you become an adult that type gets kind of serious and intellectual.
Yes.
So I think most children really love letters. You see what they draw them obsessively. So I loved them then. I did an MA about 20 years ago, and I didn't really think about it, but it was all about food as a form of communication, and it was all about food packaging. And then I didn't think about it until a few years ago, once I'd set up type tasting. It was like, oh yeah, there's a theme that's forming here, isn't there?
Yeah, it's interesting.
And the reason I'd set up type tasting was not because I'm obsessed by type for one moment. I think you can become obsessed by something if you spend your life looking at it. It was more because firstly, I was really frustrated by just the dominance of Helvetica and all of these sans serif typography was just really boring. And also all of the design software was getting really democratized, and suddenly everybody was being able to be a designer, but nobody understood how to use typography, and it was still being talked about as this very intellectual academic subject. And so I just felt like there was a gap there, that somebody needed to talk about typography, but to make it accessible and friendly and
more approachable.
Yeah, and to just
something we can all get on board with.
Absolutely, and just change the way we think and talk about it. I hadn't really thought it through, that it's actually not a business. It was more of a mission, but hey, that's fine. And it was only meant to be a year. And then I was just having so much fun creating all of these. So the way I do my research is I create huge mass participation events. So I would volunteer to do something at the London Design Festival at the V&A because I knew we'd get hundreds of people coming through the doors. And I would give them something to have fun with. And then the whole way I set the research up, as you know, from the pop-up lab on the website, it's partly to gather data, but it's also partly to make you think about what's happening or what you're doing. So hopefully you go away having learned something about it, or having thought something new at the same time as me gathering up some data that I can then put into books.
And books you're enjoying writing, and they're fascinating. I find the multisensory stuff really interesting, how looking at a typeface can make us remember smells and sounds and all this kind of thing. That's incredible.
And I will ask you to pair sounds or pair smells with different typefaces, and there are really clear patterns. Really distinct
like what?
patterns.
Can you give an example?
If I asked you to, let's think, lavender. So if I get you to smell lavender and I show you a wide range of typefaces, from frilly scripty typefaces, maybe you've got some classic sort of a Dido, which would be a very classy, I guess, French typeface, all the way through to your curvy, chunky typefaces and maybe a few spiky ones. The majority of people will pick either the curvy, scripty one, because we've been taught that we've gradually learned that lavender always comes with these frilly, scripty typefaces, or a really classic kind of French Dido kind of typeface, because again, we would the designers who know it's a French typeface, they might pair it in that way. But then I was doing, one of the first times I got loads of people to pair this, we were in my studio, we had about 20 people, and I was asking people to smell something, and then all of them simultaneously point at the font that they matched it with.
Wow.
And because they did it at the same time, they couldn't be influenced by each other's answers. And this one time, everybody pointed either at the frilly typeface or at the Dido. And then 3 people pointed at this really, really jagged typeface. So a typeface called Clute, which is the one that inspired the London 2012 logo. So you can imagine, really jagged. And I was quite perplexed. And they were standing in different places. So this is what I mean about the outliers. So I started asking them, so who are you? Do you all know each other? It turned out they were all flatmates. And then as I asked a little bit more, it turned out that the air freshener in their bathroom is lavender scented. So for them, when they smelt lavender, it was actually a warning. So really instinctively, they picked this really jaggedy typeface that looked really quite alarming.
Somebody had done a poop.
Basically, I was trying to phrase that better, but yes.
I can be crass. You can be graceful.
So for them, they had these experiences that had overwritten the frilly typeface, and they'd turned it into something quite alarming, and they hadn't thought about it. It was just a really instinctive, when I say go, run around now, pick your typeface.
Oh, it must be fascinating to talk to these outliers who just sort of, they don't give the wrong answer because there's no right or wrong. It's all, subconscious, instant kind of, right, that's the one I feel fits this scenario. But it must kind of go, oh, hang on a minute. And then, there's always got to be some logic behind why people choose things, even if that logic is, something you'd never have guessed.
But all of it comes from our experiences. And I think this is the other thing that I've really learned from this, is that when, as designers, we can't just assume that somebody else has the same experiences as us. And especially because the design world it's quite a narrow strata of society. And for people who are designers to assume that the people they're designing for might have the same associations, I think, is a little bit naive. And so we, as designers, it's really important that we are making sure that we are actually talking to our audiences, and we are using the right language, and we're doing the right kind of research, and not just foisting our associations onto them, which I think is also how I felt about going to India and seeing that these associations had kind of been taught when...
Right. This is how you're supposed to feel about this, rather than how does this make you feel? What do you associate this with?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. And I think when we sort of go back to our respective childhoods, I mean, God, you're right. It was the children's sweet packaging. It was the crisp packets for me. And do you remember the campaigns around the milk when we used to get milk delivered? Do you remember the got a lot a bottle?
Yes.
And it was all stacked, wasn't it? That has stayed with me forever. And so I suppose this makes up our subconscious, all these things that we remember from our childhoods. We grow up, the Weetabix Club, the Space Invaders crisp packets, Star Wars. They all just add up to this.
And what's amazing is while you're saying that, it's almost like I have a cinema screen in my imagination and I'm saying you're projecting these letters into my head.
Yes.
Because our brains are amazing.
They are amazing. And so when I think of these things, I think of the fonts, I think of the colours, I think of the smells. So for me, I always think of Orange and Brown and Charlie Brown, Snoopy. I think of reds and fluffy carpets and brown leather sofas and swirly carpets and fake gas fires. And then it goes on and on. And so for the last couple of years to see some of this typography that was coming out, it felt very nostalgic. And even, do you ever get that thing with your nose where your nose just kind of does this weird sort of fuzzy thing? And you're like, was that just me? Am I just weird?
I think maybe we have different places where we feel that kind of, it's like a Proustian rush of memory. Maybe we all feel it in different places in our bodies.
It's really weird. I get, if a plane goes over, this is because we're sort of near the flight path here at Manchester Airport. If a plane goes over, I get this fuzzy feeling in my nose. It's almost like I'm about to sneeze. And it just reminds me of this warm, comforting, safe feel of childhood and that things are still going on out there. So for me, when the plane stopped during the pandemic, that was really unnerving. I found that really the silence. Strange.
I was taking so many photos because London sky was so blue. It was like being in another country, and with no vapor trails, and also because that first March, April, the weather was so amazing. It was
amazing, wasn't it?
It was such a strange time.
It was a very weird time. And have you seen, going back to type trends, have you seen that we've obviously talked about how these nostalgic typefaces have come about. We've seen these kind of, these trends that sort of go towards a greener world, sustainable world, a sense of cuddliness and warmth. What are you seeing now emerge in 2022, if anything? And how do you look for trends, Sarah?
Last year I was looking at them a lot because that was one of the things people really wanted in workshops was to. So I look at, or I'm really interested in the semiotics behind trends. So I really find it interesting that trends kind of narrate cultural attitudes and social change, especially typographic trends. This year I've looked at them less because I'm a little bit more absorbed in books and things, but also because there are so many, it's really quite hard to pin it down. It's 5 years ago, there were one or two trends that I was talking about, and then a couple of years ago, or even a year ago, so I guess second year of pandemic, time has gone so weird. I've really lost the track of which year
what day is it?
Just 2020 and 2021, they kind of messed with time in some way.
They did.
But 2021, there were still very distinct trends that you could see. You had the kind of wiggly type that came out at the same time as the 1980s and the ultra frigola mirrors and all of it. You could see how type and pop culture was mirroring. You had all of this cutout stuff going on catwalks and also cutout going on in type, and you could just see these weird parallels happening. Whereas now it's kind of a free-for-all. It's absolutely everything. And part of it, I'm sure, is just because, especially as a designer, you can use Adobe fonts. You've got pretty much every typeface ever. Well, but you've just got a really wide pick and mix assortment of typefaces which are separated from their history, so you don't really think about how they would necessarily go together historically in the way that you might have previously if you were carefully buying each typeface individually and thinking about how they were going to pair together. So I'm sure that's part of why the whole pick and mix. And also I think just this exuberance and globalization, we can see everything online so easily. You can kind of pick and mix them from lots of different cultures or lots of different ideas. So now I would say it's less about trends and it's more about authenticity and thinking about what is right. You can't just put an Art Nouveau comforting typeface on something that actually isn't comforting. It will, again, going back to that congruency thing. There's almost, so you've got all of the pick and mix, all of the amazing different styles, and it's such a joyous time for type right now. But the two ends, I would say, are the kind of nostalgic, comforting, squishy, the typefaces that were already appearing pre-COVID, thanks to Chobani Yogurt's rebrand. But then 2020, it was really comforting typefaces were it for the year. But the other end of it that's been happening are these kind of really angular, or especially the kind of wedge-shaped serifs, which is so hard to say, which had turned up on things like the Guardian rebrand a few years ago, and the editor-in-chief actually described it as needing edgier type or an edgier masthead to reflect an edgier world. You've got the Landor's 250th America anniversary branding, which is, again, has really angular serifs. And again, they talk about this is about presenting America as having strength in uncertain times. So you can kind of see how underpinning everything, there are these two ends of the mood. Are typefaces being comforting, nostalgic, and safe? Or are they telling you what you need to know, not necessarily what you want to know? Are they telling you something about the reality of the world that we're living in right now? And then all of the styles kind of fit in, I would say, somewhere within all of them.
That is what I was going to ask next, actually. You know, it's about how kind of, you know, you have to really sort of maybe ignore the trends and just focus on the individual project that you're working on, and ensure that is going to sort of actually communicate the message effectively, and also speak to the audience and evoke the reaction that you want to sell the product. I mean, essentially, we're in the business of selling products, aren't we?
We are. Products,
selling ideas,
motivations. But yes, I completely agree. Picking something that's correct for that project. And sometimes sometimes it's useful if it uses the language that we are recognizing at the moment. So if you're repeating what have almost become typographic cliches, but other times it's useful to look at what's happening across other categories. And maybe you can think, okay, this hasn't reached my category yet, but it's doing the same thing over in a different category. Let's hop it over to this one. And so sometimes that's how these kind of nudges and shifts happen as well, which is quite exciting.
It's an exciting time for typography, quite the contrast to 20 years ago, as you've already sort of pointed out. I suppose 20 years ago, 2001 to 2000, when you sort of were at the London College of Communication, and what the digital revolution was really starting to make a massive impact and change things, and quite essentially reduce the amount of mediums in which typography could be presented on. But that's not been the case at all. You know, it's exploded. And if anything, typography is more important now than ever. And like you've mentioned, we are smarter. You can't trick us. You know, designers and the design community have to be more conscious of that. I mean, it's nice that everything's sort of become so more, you know, much more creative and colourful and interesting of late, given what's happening in the world. Do you ever sort of look at something and think, oh, they chose the wrong typeface there, they should have done something like this, and you're so tempted to send them a little DM? Come
very
on, Sarah.
Occasionally,
dish the dirt.
But honestly, I that's not because
it's not your job.
It's not my job. It's also not how I look at the world. I'm forever going to things and people saying, oh, look at my business card, tell me what you think. And it's like,
oh, do they?
I'm kind of off duty anyway. I wouldn't be that rude.
Oh, bless.
Occasionally I'll have some constructive suggestions for the next time you design, but it's not for me to say that looks rubbish, because I need to know who's the audience. Maybe something that I don't like. There's a chocolate brand at the moment, which I'm not going to out, but it's a chocolate brand that designers would hate to work on, because it's got this mishmash of loads of different typefaces, lots of which look of. They're not ones that you would choose, but this chocolate flies off the shelves because on a subconscious level, it tells you all the things you want to know, from this is a really good luxury chocolate through to, but it's going to be fun and it's inventive and it's handmade and it's strange flavours. So what I think aesthetically doesn't work is nothing to do with the design and the typefaces that were chosen. So it's kind of not my place. I'm more likely to
Yeah, go on, sorry.
Condescending, patronising, I don't know, all of those.
No, I was going to say it would be too kind of, you'd be like jumping into the shallow end and expecting you to do a dive. if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's like on Twitter when people just critique a logo without any of the context or without anything around it. It's just like, you don't know.
Bastards. Those bastards. How dare they? I mean, honestly.
Sometimes I might agree a little bit, but it's just, again, everything I do is all about being positive. I want you to fall in love with typography. So everything I do is got that kind of mission at the end of it. So I'm not going to critique you if it makes you feel ashamed. If we look back over our careers, when we first started using type, we were all rubbish. We were allowed to learn. We were allowed to look back over your portfolio and go, oh my God,
of course,
keep that in there now. Or maybe we would, maybe we should, as kind of, I did this.
Maybe that's another book. Maybe that's another book, Sarah. That would be fascinating.
Probably not my book, but maybe.
We could do a kind of compare and contrast. How has the design industry evolved over the last sort of 20 years? Because it has. My goodness, it's evolved
massively, and even just over the last year, the pace is picking up so incredibly dramatically. And I love that so much of it is also being democratized. That entrepreneurs, my little sister is a paramedic by day, and by night crochets hats for babies because she's got a new baby, and she's set up her own website and designed her own label because she can.
Brilliant.
And what she is using is better than anything that I could have come up with, because I would have approached it like a serious project, whereas she's just done what's instinctively right, which actually mirrors the idea of being hand knitted or hand crocheted hats. It's perfect for her, and I would not critique it or change it for one moment.
That's lovely. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? That's the misconception that you have to spend a lot of money to get something right when it comes to typography. You don't. It's about evoking the right feeling and appealing to the right audience. And that audience might not necessarily be, living in the richest part of London,
And also, so it wouldn't have been right for my little sister to have designed a logo for a huge company. No. But that's not what she was designing it for. So I'm not for one moment saying that designers are redundant. There are loads of times when actually you do need a designer with all of their expertise. But it's also lovely that we don't always now, and that everybody can actually use type in a way that works for them.
Well, I'm sure we've got a lot in store for the next couple of years as we sort of evolve and get back to normal after the last couple of years. And I bet you're very glad that I haven't asked you what your favourite typeface is, which I'm sure you get asked a lot and probably changes on a daily basis, I would imagine.
That's where what's yours?
Mine? Yes. Oh gosh, I wouldn't have a clue. I'm kind of more of a visual person in that I'll just sort of see something and go, that's nice. I'm not very good with details, Sarah. I make this joke with my husband when he tries to sort of get me to open the kind of, important post. I'll just go, details, darling, and just dismiss him with my hand. And he just rolls his eyes and goes upstairs and files it away for me. So in that case, I'm the worst person to ask what's my favourite typeface. I could say Creative Booms, Swiss Works. That's quite nice.
Cool. Good answer.
Oh, cool. Does that mean I'm in? Am I in the cool typography club now?
I don't know. Is there a cool typography club?
Well, apparently. Maybe there is. Maybe they've got a secret door. Maybe there's like a password.
I really don't.
What would the password be?
I really don't think I'm in that club. It's a different thing remembering names of typefaces. Or if I'd have just shown you a whole collection and said, which one do you like? You'd have known instantly, I like that one, I don't like that one. So it's two very different questions. And mine change constantly. My books are full of a million different typefaces. At the moment, I'm really excited about the idea that type isn't just something for the eyes. It's something that evokes all of the senses. And this whole idea of where can we explore this? Where can we take this? How can we push this a bit further?
That's great. And that's what's coming next with your up and coming book, which we can expect to come out soon. Is that planned for 2022 or is that 2023?
It takes a while to write, publish, print.
Going to say.
Get the publisher on board.
Love it. And the other thing I wanted... 23. So we'll keep everybody updated on that. But the other thing, the other final question I wanted to ask you is, as you've pitched yourself as a type expert over the last sort of 10 years, is there a pressure to sort of be, like this huge expert on everything, to know all of the typefaces that are coming out from all these amazing independent foundries, or do you just sort of say, oh, for goodness sake, no?
I don't think I've pitched myself as a type expert.
Come on, you are. You're the go-to.
I would say I would like to be the go-to for things like multisensory type and thinking about and type for mainstream audiences, so for type consumers. I am not a type expert for one moment. I don't know what the new trendy, or I don't know what the new typefaces are. I don't think it's
possible, is it? No. I don't think it's possible. It's such a complicated, interesting whirlwind of a subject that's constantly evolving. I don't think it's possible for any of us to be an expert.
And you can probably see from my body language that you've just evoked my anxiety whenever I go and speak at a big conference alongside the real type experts, that it's just like, oh no, they know what they're talking about and I don't.
I'm sure they're thinking the same when they see you, because you've kind of actually delved into things on this deeper level and gone, oh, right, well, this means this and that smells like that. And, actually going out and talking to the audience, which, let's be honest, the people who buy these things, they're the most important, really. They're the ones that matter. Fonts matter. I mean, obviously not fonts, typefaces. Yes, I've got it right now. So what one kind of bit of wisdom would you leave us with that you feel that really stands out in the last sort of 10 years of exploring all this research, when people are sort of, anybody listening to this who works in design, or maybe they don't, maybe they're an illustrator, maybe they're kind of a photographer, what kind of one piece of wisdom always sort of comes to the fore that you've learned from your research?
Too many things. I think I would say the main thing is not to be intimidated by typography as a subject, and just find whatever entry point excites you, whether that's looking at packets of crisps from your childhood, whether it's walking around looking at signs on a high street, whether it's scrolling through Instagram, what excites you. And then once you're feeling excited by it, then you'll start to learn and start to use it. And don't be so frightened about getting it wrong that you don't try.
Love it. So on that note, we're going to leave it with a kind of almost Yoda philosophy, feel it, don't think it. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. This is really good fun. And
my pleasure.
I feel like I know so much more now. So thank you.
My pleasure. Lovely talking to you.
If you'd like to learn more about Sarah Hyndman, you can find everything you need in our show notes via creativeboom.com/podcast. That's where you can also subscribe and enjoy fresh episodes from us every Monday morning. Thanks for listening. And thanks again to our sponsor, Astropad Studio, the ultimate iPad app for professional artists around the world. To start your 30-day free trial, go to astropad.com. Next up, I'll be chatting with Darnell Brown, a creative strategist and educator based in North Carolina.